Welcome, everyone. As you're joining, if you don't mind, I'll start putting your name in the chat and letting us know where you're dialing in from. And if you have a Reduces group, what's your Reduces group's name? I'll start here. Okay. Oh, Petaluma. So again, if you're just joining, good evening. I'm Stephanie Miller, one of the organizational members of US Reduces, and I'm the founder of DC Reduces. And just go ahead and put your name in the chat along with where you're hailing from. And if you have a Reduces group, what's the name of the Reduces group? But if you don't have a Reduces group, that's totally fine. And that's why you're here too. Oh, we've got great coverage. And I meant to ask Yayoi before we started, what are we up to now in terms of the number of Reduces groups?
Um,
Is it like
Few
15?
dozens.
What
A
is
few
it?
dozens. I haven't counted, but you can go to our page on our website.
Yes,
Uh,
I was trying to count, and then there are the new ones that just started.
yes, we're going to talk about them. We're going to
Yes.
introduce them today. Um, Bridget and Yaolin. I saw Bridget coming in, and I think Yaolin will be here soon too.
Yes, I'm very excited because Yowlin's group is my neighbor, basically in Northern Virginia, and I'm in DC. So again, I see we've got a trickling in. If you're just joining, welcome to the US Reduces meeting. Please go ahead and enter your name in the chat and your Reduces group if you have one, or where you're located geographically. We've got a lot of New York. I've noticed a lot of New York Reduces groups, which is great. Should we give it another minute or so before I go through the agenda? I think we had quite a few people registered for the meeting, and we've got 18 now. So maybe we'll just give it another minute or so.
Hey, Yui, it's Barb.
Oh,
Hello,
hi, Bob.
hello, hello.
Hey, uh, Bob is from Ithaca. uh, our our group member. Thank you for coming.
I'll just say I'm jealous because I had about 5 volunteers at the height, and they've all scattered around, and it's just little old me. So anyway, you can do it by yourself, but it's more
Yeah,
fun to do it with other people.
yeah,
And I'll
it's
just, yeah. So let's see. We've got 19 people. Again, go ahead and put your name in the chat and your Reduces group if you have one. I'll just remind everyone, although I think this group is a lot of folks that have Reduces groups started, but the whole idea behind it is that those of us who have formed a group help raise awareness in our community about the possibility of reuse by having local business put a sticker in their window that signals to customers that they can come in with their coffee cup, their garment bag to the dry cleaners, their produce bags, if it's legal in the state, their takeaway containers for food, and that they won't get hassled. And we also believe that besides making it easier for those of us who really want to be doing this, for our own sake, we're also creating a buzz and creating a catalyst for change, hopefully in the communities that we're in. And it is so great to see how many, I've started losing track of how many reduces groups there are. So it is really great to see how many have proliferated. Okay, and we've had another couple people join, so I'll just ask if you could introduce yourselves in the chat with your name, where you're from, and what the name of your group is. And then I think maybe, yes, welcome to everybody. Oh, yay, Port Jefferson. Okay, so I think maybe we'll move to I'll quickly go through the agenda for the evening. Just
Sounds
need
good.
the-
Ian, if you could move yeah, thank you very much.
Great. So I'm going to, in a moment, hand it over to our fearless founder, leader, Yayoi, who's going to give us some announcements about the future meetings and some other cool things going on with the new programs. A bit of a spotlight on the really important work that the New York State Reduces groups are doing with their petition. And then Yayoi will introduce our guest speaker, Courtney Williams from the Westchester Alliance for Sustainable Solutions. And I, for one, am really, really looking forward to hearing what she has to say. It sounds like a difficult but important initiative that you're undertaking, Courtney. And then I just want to urge everyone to please stay for the breakout social about 15 minutes after the Q&A, after our guest speaker. And this is a chance where, in smaller groups, we can get to know each other a little bit better. Every time I join one of the groups, I learn something new. So this particular time, we're going to leave it up to you as always on what you want to do, but by all means, introduce yourselves, and then you can share your favorite zero waste Halloween strategies if you've developed any. Excuse me, or just tell us what your local group is up to. It's a really great opportunity to, I hate the word network, but to exchange information and get to know each other a little bit better. And then we'll come back to the plenary so that we can wrap up. And as I always say, and Jill, when she moderates, is also super at this, we finish on time. We will finish at 8:30 no matter what. We know people are busy. So with that, I just want to see, we now have 22 people who have joined. If you haven't already, I'll say welcome, and please go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat. And over to you, Yayoi.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. So I want to talk about announcements. Thank you. So first announcement. We have 2 new groups. Every time we have meetings, we have 1 or 2 new groups join around the country. And this is a good pace for us because we all volunteer and just inputting all these information up on the website and updating the list, maps, and everything is a lot of work. And this pace is really good for us. And we are very excited because these 2 new groups are both in 2 new states. We haven't had any BYO programs in those states, so I'm very excited. Welcome, Jamaica Plain Reduces in Massachusetts, near Boston, and welcome to Northern Virginia Reduces from Virginia. Congratulations to Bridget and Yaolin. And I was wondering if Bridget and Yaolin could come on and say hello. Bridget, would you like to unmute yourself? And maybe if you could just temporarily put the slides down so people can see Bridget and Yaolin. Thank you. Bridget.
Hi. Yeah, I'm here.
Oh,
Hi.
Bridget.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you.
We're so excited you joined us.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm Bridget. I live in Jamaica Plain, which is a neighborhood in Boston. And I'm one of a few people starting up a group, and BYO is one of our initiatives. And we're working on some skip the stuff initiatives and reusable to go, and working with Rethink disposable through Clean Water Action to help get some restaurants to switch over to reusables, but we're in the beginning stages, so nothing's happened yet. But we just got like $10,000 in grants to help us to do so. Good
Wow,
stuff. Good
great.
stuff. Yeah. So now we have to figure out how to do it.
That's
Great.
incredible. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Get the grants
Wow.
from? Bridget, who did you get the grants from?
Oh, sorry. One was called just the Beacon Hill, a city grant that was for 1,000, and the other was through Massachusetts Department of Waste that are trying to encourage small group initiatives to help reduce the waste flow into the landfills. So that was a little over 8,000, so just under $10,000. But
Excellent. Excellent.
yeah.
Sounds like you have a plate full of things to do and
Yeah, and this
$10,000.
is all new for me, so we're moving slowly forward, but hopefully in a year I'll be reporting back pretty good
Excellent.
success. So
All
yeah.
right. Great. Thank you so much. All right. Okay, now let's move on to Yaoling. Is she here? She says she's gonna be here, but I don't think I see her.
I don't see her.
Okay.
Maybe she'll join later.
She'll join later. Okay. Maybe she has something going on. Okay. Well, so those are 2 new groups, so congratulations. Thank you, Ian. So we are very excited about that. You can go to our website and check our local groups, list of local groups. We are collecting quite a few new programs and groups across the country, so please check it out. Okay, thank you. Ian, if you could move to the next slide, please. Thank you very much. Okay, here, I'm gonna let Jill talk about this. Dunkin' campaign update. We have a new reel. Jill, would you like to talk about this?
Sure, yes. Well, we were just talking about that before the meeting started. I had an experience at Dunkin' Donuts, several months ago where I brought in my mug. I was on one of the concession areas along the Parkway, happened to be in Connecticut Park, New England Thruway. And I brought my mug in there and I said, could I have a cup of coffee? And here's my mug. And they said, we're sorry, we cannot do that. And we said, why can't you do that? They said, well, they would fire us if we did that. And I asked around, and a number of people also mentioned that they had run into that same situation. Actually, we just before I was talking to the woman who is Tina Lieben, who's the head of Zero Waste Capital District. That's Capital District, Albany, New York. And she said she also recently went into a Dunkin' store and said, here's my mug, please fill it. And they said, well, we can't do it, but we will fill a plastic cup or a paper cup coated with plastic, and we'll pour it. You could pour it into your container, your mug. And of course, that's not what we want. We want to eliminate waste, and we want to protect ourselves from the toxic chemicals that line those paper cups. And we certainly don't want to place in a plastic cup, which will leach plastic and chemicals into our bodies. So we decided to do something and to write to the head of Dunkin' Donuts. Well, Dunkin' is not owned by Dunkin' Donuts. It's owned by a big conglomerate called Inspire Brands. And it has Inspire Brands it has revenues in the billions of dollars. They are global, so they have outlets in countries throughout the world, and they control and own places like Arby's and Baskin Robbins, Buffalo Wild Wings, and a host of other fast food restaurants. So back in July, after getting a letter together with a lot of people here, Yayoi and others had input into this letter, very thoughtful letter, just talking about the fact that they could help reduce waste and cut down on chemicals and toxins by changing their policy and allowing customers to use their bring your own containers. Well, we sent those letters registered, certified mail back in July, never heard from the CEO of the company, Paul Brown, nor did we hear from their chief impact and communications officer, who had won an award in Atlanta, which is their home base. And the award was for being a sustainable organization and walking the talk. So we mentioned that in the letter. We never got a response, and very frustrating. And a woman who was on the call, my pal and compatriot from Columbia County Reduces Waste, Paula Wildermuth, who's now out in California, said, by the way, she was, what's happening with the Inspire Brands campaign. And I kept saying nothing, we haven't heard. She said, well, she did some checking, and Inspire Brands is controlled by a group. It's called Rock Capital Group, which is one of these big equity groups which controls them. So she gave me the name, thank you, Paula, for the man who's the head of the board of directors, and a woman who is both the CFO of Inspire and also is a head of a women's food committee, corporate food committee. So we sent certified letters to the two of them, and those letters went out in August. And so far, we have not heard from them. So Yayoi, through her network, spoke with a Cornell student who is now living down in Atlanta. As I said, that's a home base for Inspire Brands and also Raw Capital. And she also had worked for Inspire Brands at one point, and she said she volunteered to write an op-ed for the Atlantic Journal, Constitution Journal, which is their big newspaper. So that was, you could fill in some of the details, but I know that piece was ready to go to the Atlanta Journal Constitution, and so that they could print that. And again, it calls upon Inspire Brands and Raw Capital to do what they can to change their policy to allow BYO and protect our health and decrease the waste that these reusable, disposable, single-use cups and other things that they use are causing. So that's where we are right now with our Dunkin' campaign.
Thank you so much, Jill. I wonder, so we are working on some more actions. It's going to be a long haul. And if you have a moment, Amy is putting down a lot of links in the chat. If you have an Instagram account, please go to the reel, and you can see a beautiful reel that Ian created. And click like and click save, comment, and also share on stories to help with the algorithm. Saving is actually pretty important. So if you could just hit the saving button and do any kinds of interactions with it, it's great. And when you share it, make sure to tag it to the Inspire Brands. You can just say @Inspire Brands. The same post is also on Facebook. So you can do the similar things. But like, if you could take a moment to do that right now, I really appreciate it. Can we know if it was all Dunkin's or just that one? Courtney, our guest speaker, thank you so much for being here, Courtney. She asked in the chat if we know if all Dunkin's are like that. A lot of Dunkin's are like that. There are some exceptions, and I think it depends on how much good training they have received at different levels of a franchise. But a lot of Dunkin's are like that. There are some exceptions, and we heard that like Dunkin's in Upper West Side is an anomaly, and they welcome cups, the BYO cups. But yeah, we hear a lot of complaints about Dunkin' from a lot of places. Yeah. Yes, we will share the op-ed once it's published. We don't know. We do not know actually which paper to submit to. We are working on, we have some different options. And Jill mentioned the one that we are shooting for first. We might try other outlets as well. Okay, thank you very much. Okay.
Yeah, just a time check. So you're gonna go into the mini presentation now, right?
I have a couple more things that I want to cover.
Okay,
Yes,
go ahead. Go ahead.
I'll go fast. Thank you. And also while we are talking about Instagram, I know a lot of people are not on Instagram, but if you do, Facebook or Instagram, you please tag your post at US Reduces, and that way we can see your work in pictures, and we can try to save them and put it on the newsletter, share and amplify like on our end the best we can. And also if you have any local news that's mention worthy, about your BYO actions, please send it to us with like one short paragraph of 2 or 3 sentences. We are all volunteers, so I want to emphasize we are super overstretched. I love it if it's like a publication worthy right away in our newsletter. We create a newsletter, right before our meeting, gathering time, usually every other month. And if it's like, it's a great pitch, short 2-3 sentences and a great picture, that I can, just copy and paste into the newsletter without, much editing, that would be like really fantastic. And I appreciate that. And I'd love to amplify your efforts, with hyperlinks and things like that. So please consider sending it to info@usreduces.org. And also any local news, please share it in a Google group. It's discussions at usreduces.org. So if you send your news pieces to that email, it will go to all the registered group members, like our networks. If you haven't joined, that Google group, where you send the email to like discussions@usreduces.org, that Google group is for the people who started a BYO program in your local area. So if you haven't signed up on the form, you're not part of it, but you can get news from our Substack newsletter. But if you are part of the network, you can email the Google group, and we can all stay in touch and see what other groups are doing. And we also have a Facebook group, which I hope Amy can drop the link to the chat. Thank you. And here on Facebook, we have a small group there, a discussion group there that you can, share your journey with your BYO actions at your local level. So thank you very much on that. So please stay connected. Ian, if you could move on to the next. Okay, so December gathering. We meet every 2 months, and we meet on the first Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Central. So the first Tuesday every other month. So the next one is December. And we have an exciting guest, Zach Shavin. He is a public affairs manager at Too Good To Go. And for those of you who do not know what Too Good To Go is, it is a phone app that will allow restaurants to share the leftovers at the end of the day at a discounted price. And it's rolling out at a lot of cities in the US. It's originally from Europe, but it's coming to the US, and it's actually coming to Ithaca. That's how I got to talk with him, and he's willing to present for us. about Too Good to Go, so we can learn more about it and its effort. So register for the December meeting now. Ian chat is really busy. Amy is dropping the link for us about the for the registration link for the December meeting. So mark your calendar. It's going to be December 2nd of December, Tuesday. Okay. All right, that's it for the December. Thank you. All right, local group program spotlight. Me and Jill are going to take the spotlight. I'm sorry. We are from New York. We have lots of groups from lots of programs, BYO programs in New York. And we have something really exciting happening. We are trying to amend a bill in New York State Legislature about bring your own. Ian, if you could move to the next slide, please. Yeah, so we are putting a petition out, and we're talking with the legislative aid of the bill sponsors, 2 bill sponsors in the Senate, New York State Senate and Assembly. Right now, the bill doesn't do anything except for affirming what's already allowed in New York, which is to bring your own cups for beverages and pack out our own leftovers if you couldn't finish eating at the restaurants. And we are also allowed to bring our containers to fill at the bulk section at food co-ops for dry goods such as beans, nuts, grains, and things like that. Those 3 things are allowed in New York currently. But what we are not allowed to do is to bring our own container for food takeout at restaurants and grocery delis. So we are requesting the legislature to change this because this is already allowed in California, Illinois, Oregon, and Maine. So we are working to change this, and I would like to ask you, Amy just put the link in the chat for the BYO amendment petition. I would like you to take a moment to sign this petition right now, if you will. We just passed 1,000 signature mark. We worked really hard, Jill and I worked really hard to get signatures. And so now we have 1,000 signatures from individuals and over 50 organizations now sign on, but we don't think we have enough. And we'd like to show this really broad support from everywhere. And it's important to have signatures even if you're not in New York State, because just like we reference to other states that already have the full BYO law, rights and law, if we make this happen, if other states who wants to change their laws, their state food code can reference to New York's example. So if you could sign that now, I'd really appreciate it. Even if you could move on to the next slide, please. And yeah, so these are the things that we are working on. And repeal the outdated food code that's prohibiting us from bringing our own containers at the food from the restaurant, and also protect the businesses from liability. And another cool thing about our amendment proposal is that we have this example from Vermont where a co-op is keeping a collection of jars that customers can drop off. They drop off clean jars they don't need, and people can just grab one and fill at their dry goods bulk section at their co-op. And so they leave the container and take the container as they like, but New York's court prohibits that. So we also are requesting to change that code in one of the proposals. So the link that Amy put out has all the information to resources, our amendment proposals, and the common questions like cross-contaminations and et cetera, so please check it out and sign the petition, and please pass it on. If you have a friends in New York State, please send it to them and ask them to sign and pass it on. So thank you very much. Thank you, Ian. If you could move on to the next. Announcements, a breakout social matchup. If you know anybody who you want to talk to during the breakout session, then please send a private message to Ian and she might be able to handle it. Thank you. Next, please. And now I am going to introduce Courtney, our guest speaker today. I am super excited to have her. I met her at different conferences in New York. I met her at Zero Waste New York conference once, and then I also met her at Beyond Plastics conference once. I heard her talk and it was so good and so impressive. So I was like, oh, I have to have her. I have to have her to join us for the BYO meeting. And I asked her and she was so nice and she said, yes, right away. So here she is. Courtney Williams is a PhD, is a cancer researcher, environmental activist, and founder of Westchester Alliance for Sustainable Solutions. And WAS, for short, I think. And WAS is leading the movement to transition Westchester County towards zero waste. And to close the WIN, Courtney, I wonder, do I call it WIN or WIN waste trash?
Yeah, they call it WIN waste.
Oh, WIN waste. Okay, WIN waste trash incinerator, advancing environmental justice for Peekskill. So the Westchester, for those who don't know, New York, it's north of New York City. It's close to New York City. Welcome, Courtney. Without much further ado, please take it away. And Ian, if you could turn off our slide, and then Courtney can put up her slides. Ian? Okay. No, Ian, could you please turn off the slides so that Courtney can bring her own slides? Oh, shoot.
Are you also a host? Oh, there we go.
Okay, there you go. All right.
All right. So my name is Courtney Williams. I live in Peekskill, New York, which is in the northern part of Westchester County. And Westchester County is the county that's immediately north of the Bronx in New York City. It's right on the Hudson River. And I moved here in 2011, not realizing it was an environmental justice community facing all kinds of horrible polluting infrastructure. So I actually got my start in environmental activism fighting fracked gas expansion in New York State with Stop the Algonquin Pipeline expansion. And then I started a nonprofit called Safe Energy Rights Group to fund the legal battle against the expansion of the Algonquin Pipeline. And because the deck is stacked against communities, despite our legal challenge, pipeline construction was able to continue. So I helped found Resist Spectra, which used direct action and nonviolent civil disobedience to slow pipeline construction. And noticing kind of all of that and becoming more aware of the environmental injustices facing Peekskill, I also realized we have a trash incinerator. And so I started fighting that too. And yeah, that's me at work. So I am a cancer researcher by training. I have a Ph.D. in molecular biology. I did my postdoc in biological engineering. My undergrad's in molecular biochemistry and biophysics. So sometimes the three letters after my name are helpful when decision makers don't want to pay attention. And the science background's definitely helpful when industry tries to mislead and hoodwink the public and decision makers about the science behind the harm that they're doing. So I kind of say that I study cancer and try to come up with treatments for cancer during the day and try to prevent cancer at night. So this is kind of the agenda of my presentation, a quick overview of WAS and the 3 Ps, which are the problems with incinerators, and then a little bit about solutions. So what is WAS? It is an alliance of community organizations from Westchester County working to close the Wheelabrator Westchester incinerator operated by Wind Waste Innovations in Peekskill. And it is where Westchester County burns its trash. And if you remember nothing of this presentation, you can remember the 3 Ps. Incineration is bad for people, it's bad for the planet, it's bad for our pocketbooks. In the case of, so some people call it the wind waste incinerator, some people call it Wheelabrator. When it was first built, it was called Resco. And so I think they kind of changed the name periodically to avoid people remembering what they are, and it kind of helps to mislead people. But so it is the largest industrial air polluter in Westchester County, and we get an F. I might need to update this slide. We might have done better, and we've gone up to a D from the American Lung Association for our air quality. But Peekskill residents where I live have high rates of the health problems that are caused by air pollution. It's also really bad for the planet because it is the largest industrial greenhouse gas emitter in the county. And it's bad for our pocketbooks because it is historically the most expensive way to manage waste. And we are also now, our incinerator is one of the oldest in the country. And we would really be in a bad way if it shut down and we had not put in place alternatives. So we are pushing for the implementation of zero waste solutions that are long-term and self-sustaining before it's time to consider renewing the contract for this incinerator. So to break down the Ps. It's bad for the planet. So for Westchester County, where does our trash go? It goes to the incinerator. And that is not that picture is not our incinerator, but is from an incinerator. And 76% of the trash that's burned in Peekskill is from Westchester County. We get some from Greenwich, Connecticut, a little bit from Brooklyn, New York, and then a little bit from neighboring counties. But if you look, so in the foreground there, you see the trash incinerator on the left-hand side of your screen. And behind the text, the dome there, that's Indian Point Nuclear Power Plant. So we have both of those things on our riverfront. But it started operating in 1984, that incinerator. And if you just take 2017 data and multiply by 40 and get estimates of how much pollution it's produced, we're talking about 40,000 tons of nitrous oxides, over a ton of lead, 840 pounds of mercury, almost 32 million tons of greenhouse gas emissions. and over 8 million tons of toxic ash over 40 years. So this is generations of Peekskill residents being exposed to this. And that water you see, that's the Hudson River. So that's the drinking water for many communities along the Hudson. It's also one of the nation's largest Superfund sites because it's contaminated with PCBs. So the incinerator company loves to say, but we make power, we make energy. Well, we would be better off burning coal for the amount of pollution generated per megawatt hour. So this graph shows you in red is the emissions from burning trash per megawatt hour, and in black are the emissions from burning coal. And so you can see carbon monoxide, nitrous oxides, mercury, lead, cadmium. It's worse to burn trash than to burn coal. And it's important to note, and I know this group knows full well the connection between fossil fuels and plastics, which is, you need the fossil fuels to make the plastics. Well, you also need the fossil fuels to burn the plastics because this incinerator is hooked up to the pipelines that I thought. And if the garbage is not burning hot enough, it produces more pollution. So they are hooked into and use fracked gas to burn this stuff, and they're burning a lot of plastics. On the left-hand side, that is a picture of a still from a video that my husband took from the back porch of our house. And that plume you see is from the trash incinerator. And if this video had sound, it would sound like a jet engine taking off, because that is how loud that incinerator is, and it's how close it is to my house. And I installed a purple air monitor in my backyard to monitor emissions. And as a scientist by training, you need to have the data. So we had this video, we had the data from our air monitor. And so what you see is this crazy spike here getting into the red, which is unhealthy for everyone to breathe. And particulate matter are just these teeny tiny little particles that can get into our lungs and trigger asthma attacks and inflammation. People with COPD, things like that, cardiovascular, like emergencies, like heart attacks, go up when you're exposed to high levels of particulate matter in an acute way. And so in addition to the video and the air data, I have the time-stamped emails from the communications director at the incinerator that they were having a malfunction at this time. And it's important to note that incinerators and other point sources of massive quantities of air pollution, like incinerators, are exempt from their emissions standards during malfunctions and startups and shutdowns. So, rules don't apply. And so, a lot of times they'll say, like, they'll do some monitoring or they'll take a snapshot of emissions and they'll multiply by 365 and they'll say, these are our emissions in a year. But when you look at the actual real-time data, you see harmful peaks like this that really should have reverse 911 calls going out for sensitive populations, like close your windows, stay inside, don't exercise outdoors, etc. But we don't have that. But once it's burned and it goes up in smoke like that, it's not gone. So it doesn't go away. In order to reduce the pollutants that are coming out, they have all kinds of pollution control mechanisms that spray other chemicals into the smoke or into the stack as the smoke is going up to kind of capture the lead and the cadmium and other things. And then that precipitates out of the smoke and it falls to the bottom of the smokestack, and it gets mixed with the other ash that's left over from burning the garbage. And so the estimate is that about 1/3 of what you burn, you get in ash at the end. So if you burn, 3 million tons of garbage, you get 1 million tons of ash. And really, that is all that stuff you didn't want in the air. It is all the stuff that got left over with the burning. And it's like No one's having a campfire and roasting their marshmallows over a fire of plastic bags and water bottles and medication and, you know, soap and packaging materials and, you know, carpet, turf. Like, no one's roasting their marshmallow over that. But that's what this ash winds up, that's the leftovers here. And so for many years until 2020, they brought the waste to what you see there. That mountain in the background is a mountain of toxic ash. And in its lifetime, it's produced 7 million tons of toxic ash. That mountain is 4 million tons of it. And locally, we call it the Frit Pit. And it was closed in 2011. And it was capped. And they made a park. So that's what you see in the foreground. You see the ball field and you see the playground. And that is called Sprout Brook Park. And it's called Sprout Brook Park because between the ball field and the playground is a brook. And that brook is part of Peekskill's watershed. And that brook drains into the Hudson River. So we have 4 million tons of toxic ash stored there, and I'm sure they did an excellent job, and nothing is leaching out. It's A-OK forever. And then once they capped that, now they haul it to Putnam, Connecticut, where residents are fighting a massive monofill ash landfill that's that the wind waste company's trying to expand there. But the trucks have to carry all that toxic ash straight through downtown Peekskill, because our neighboring community of Cortland Manor, they passed a law that the trucks couldn't travel on the main north-south route through their town. So that forces the trucks to go right through downtown Peekskill, past the schools, past our public housing developments and our playgrounds and things like that. So that's for the planet, right? We've got all this air pollution. We've got all of this toxic ash left over. What about people? Well, this is a graph from the 2021 Health Equity Report put out by the New York State Department of Health. And what it is showing is the rate of emergency department visits per 10,000 population, all ages, from 2016 to 2018. That's the data we have, latest data we have available. And in red, that tall bar, that is the city of Peekskill. In blue is the rest of Westchester County, and you can see that it's almost double the rate. And if you include, the pink bar, that's the whole of New York State, if you exclude New York City. But even in green, if you include all of New York State, including New York City, we have a higher rate of ER visits for asthma than the entire rest of New York State. Or, you know, I guess there's probably other communities that are similarly poor off, but, you know, on the whole. And the scientific evidence is very clear. Air pollution is directly related to asthma and other cardiovascular problems, and and acute exposure to that particulate matter and other nitrous oxides and things can trigger asthma attacks. And the other just insulting thing for us is that the permit for this incinerator until this year was held by the Westchester County Industrial Development Agency. And earlier this year, or no, I guess it was last year probably, I foiled documents related to the IDA and the air permit, because all of these major air polluters need to have a Title V air permit under the Clean Air Act. And the permit holder for this incinerator was the Westchester County Industrial Development Agency. So I foiled them asking for documents about the permit, and they produced nothing. I fought it back and forth. They got their lawyer involved. They said they had no documentation. And then this year, lo and behold, they've transferred that permit from the IDA to wind waste. I'm sure it has nothing to do with my foil. But so basically this means this permit has been expired for almost 4 years, and we still have not seen a draft, nothing at all. And these permits last, I think, for 4 or 5 years. So that means the air quality standards and the rules that they're being held to are these old rules, like almost a decade ago. So I mentioned Peekskill's an environmental justice committee. So that's a map you can see of like all of New York State and where Westchester and then where Peekskill is in red. And in 2010, the Hudson River Sloop Clearwater and the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation did an environmental justice audit. So basically looking at pollutants and in and around Peekskill. And some of these bullet points are, I'm not going to read them all, but the bottom line is we are a majority minority community. So we have most of our population are Black and Latino. And then that second bullet is neighborhoods within a 12.5-mile radius of downtown Peekskill are home to at least 2 hazardous waste handlers, 7 hazardous waste facilities, 19 solid waste facilities, 27 major and minor air polluters, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Just to show you the history of environmental racism that we're dealing with. And we have the health data showing that we are feeling those effects and having all of those health issues that are associated with air pollution. So this is a picture of the Peekskill riverfront. On the left-hand side is Peekskill. On the right-hand side is Rockland County. That's the Hudson River. And this was taken by a community member with a drone many years ago. And this is, what you see. This is what it looks like. But as an environmental justice advocate, this is what I see. So we have the trash incinerator is producing this first plume of smoke. Then we have the defunct nuclear power plant that's in the process of being decommissioned, has 40 years of irradiated spent fuel there, nuclear contamination in the groundwater and all of the soil, et cetera, et cetera. We have a gypsum plant that's another Title V emitter, major source of air pollution. And then just off the image to the left is a BASF chemical plant. Their air permit expired in 2017. So their air quality standards are from the 2010s. Under the Hudson River, we have a fracked gas pipeline, that one I mentioned that I was fighting. It's actually a system of pipelines. So there's 3 under the Hudson and 3 underneath the nuclear plant with the 40 years of irradiated spent fuel, because someone thought that was a good idea. On the Rockland side, we have the bomb trains carrying crude and refined oil north and south between Albany and New Jersey. And the Hudson itself is the largest Superfund site in the United States because it is contaminated with PCBs, complements of General Electric. So we have a poor community. We have people that subsistence fish, even though there are signs on our riverfront warning about the PCBs and eating the seafood. Just last week, I think it was, the current owner of the defunct nuclear plant won their legal challenge to New York State's Save the Hudson bill, granting them permission to dump 1 million gallons of radioactive wastewater into the Hudson River. The gypsum plant routinely coats us in dust every night. The trash incinerator is the largest industrial air polluter. Communities around incinerators are known to have higher levels of PFAS, etc. The chemical plant, we get lots of nice sparkles all over everything that's left outside. We have the fracked gas pipeline. If it ruptures in the first 60 seconds, it will be the equivalent of the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. We have the bomb trains. We have all of this. It just feels like a huge target on our backs. And while it is, I won't say it's not unique, because it is. We're the only nuke plant with a gas pipeline system under it in the entire country, because nowhere else in the United States do regulators think it's safe, except for right here north of Manhattan. But it's a common story of EJ communities get all of this at once. So New York State a few years ago passed the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. That was this like amazing, most forward thinking climate legislation in the nation. And they had to figure out a way to implement all the aspirations in the bill. And one of the things they wanted to do was make sure that environmental justice communities like Peekskill got a big cut of the pie for the funding to offset the burden that they've been facing. So they came up with what they called the disadvantaged communities criteria to basically measure like how bad does your community have it. And this map is available online, so people in New York can look up your own. But this purple census tract, that is my census tract where I live. And you mouse over it and it pops this up and shows you the environmental burden. So the environmental burden that I and my neighbors face is higher than 98% of census tracts in New York State. And then the vulnerability score is a measure of how equipped is this community to deal with the environmental burden. So do you have disabilities? Do you have health insurance? Are you a senior? And basically, we are more vulnerable than 84% of census tracts in New York State. And you can see asthma, COPD, heart attack, low birth weight. These are all things the science directly links to air pollution. But then you look, energy poverty, old housing stock, the cost burden of being unable to afford rent, living in rental homes, not having internet access. These are what make us vulnerable. And you know, what I tell people is for me, I'm lucky, right? I'm the white lady with the Ph.D., the good job, the health insurance, paid time off from work. I can take my kids to the doctor. I don't have to worry about it. I have neighbors who can't afford their electric bill. So at night, when I hear the jet engine taking off that is the incinerator venting, I get up and I close the windows and everybody in the whole house, and I'll turn on the air conditioning so that we don't sweat in the heat. My neighbors that can't afford their electric bills, they might not make that same choice. And they might decide to leave the window open with the fan going to get some fresh air and in effect be exacerbating their exposure to these pollutants. And like what I want to point out in terms of our environmental burden is this: municipal waste combustors, 92%. Our burden is higher than 92% just in that category alone. And that's thanks to the trash incinerator. So you all are working to reduce the waste, right? BYO. This is why you do it. I know you have your reasons and you're probably doing it for your community too, but like it feels like it's for communities like my community and ones like it. And so what does not ever, ever, ever get considered is the cumulative impacts of all of this, right? So there's those vulnerability aspects like language barrier, cost of housing, being energy burdened, immigration status, disability, access to healthcare. But then there's also the VOCs, the PCBs, the nitrous oxides, the carbon monoxide, the benzene, all of these things. Then, we got a nuke plant. So throw in some strontium, throw in some tritiated water, then add to it, people have cancer, they have asthma, they have COPD, infants born at low birth weights, that then they're basically making people ill. And combine all of those things. And that's where we're at right now. And I know as a cancer researcher that I cannot take a single molecule of pollution and track it to a single cell and a single mutation in the DNA that leads to a tumor, right? Likewise, I can't take a tumor and backtrack to exactly the polluter that that produced that molecule of air pollution that led to the cancer. And effectively, that is kind of what the government and the press and everyone want us to do. Like, we have to prove that you've been harmed. And it's hard to do with a single kind of pollution. Never mind when no one has studied it sufficiently to be able to do that with a single source of pollution. But when you combine the radioactive pollution, the particulate matter pollution, the PCBs, all the ground level ozone, like all of these things together, no one is studying this and no one's able to say whether or not it's safe or, or I mean, we kind of know it's not safe, right? Like it's just the straw that broke the camel's back. Like, yes, maybe one of these things would not be so horrendous, but when you combine them all together, what are you doing to people? Last but not least, the pocketbook. So this is a graph. It stops in 2004, so it's old, but this is including most of the lifetime of our trash incinerator. And it's a graph of the tip fee. So the tip fee is what they call like how much it costs to dump that garbage. So in blue is the cost of incineration per ton. And in red is the cost of landfilling. And I'm not advocating for landfilling, but what I'm saying is that municipal governments that have chosen incineration are misspending your tax dollars. They are wasting your money to effectively make either your community or some other community like mine sick. And I do need to update this bullet because it's now 41 years old. And if it finishes its contract with Westchester County, it'll be tied as the oldest trash incinerator in the country. The average age that one of these retires is 24 years old, 24, 26, it depends on the year, but we are like looking at nearly double that age. And so really just smart fiscal policy for our county government is to be making a plan to get off this. And, I think I, for time, can skip this part because this is a lot of what right? The linear economy versus the zero waste. We need a circular economy. We don't need to get to zero. We just need to get really close to zero. And there's a lot of ways to do it. We need to just eliminate the plastics, period. And then we need to be doing these kinds of BYO options. So bottom line, trash incinerator, not green, not clean, not sustainable. It's harming our health. It's killing our planet. It costs us a lot of money, and yet we keep doing it. And I can speculate as to why, but this is what we are burning. So this is from the New York State DEC Solid Waste Management Plan, and this is their measurements for what's in municipal solid waste. So this is what's getting burned. And it's important to note, plastics make up 14% of this. This pie chart is by weight, not by volume. Okay, so imagine how much plastic is going in there to be 14% when you're up against wood and food scraps, right? So Westchester County already has programs to eliminate 90% of this. So we do plastic recycling, which we know doesn't really work. So we're working on eliminating the plastics entirely, but really there's this miscellaneous 10%. We just need the political will to expand the existing programs, and we don't need to be burning garbage. And you all, I'm sure, know about zero waste, and I'm going to skip through this stuff. So, and then if you're local to me, we are doing a tour of the exterior of the incinerator, because just like that frit pit is in a park, the incinerator is in a park as well on the riverfront. If you look upriver, it's beautiful. If you look downriver, it's all industrial polluting sites. But if you're in the Westchester area or driving distance and you want to join us, it's next Wednesday, 5:30. We're meeting at Charles Point Park. That's the park where the incinerator is. And we'll tour the exterior, and then everyone's invited back to my house for a community potluck. So my contact info's up there, and you're all welcome to join if you're near enough by. And I'll end there. And I've seen stuff popping up in the chat, but I haven't been able to look at it because I've been screen sharing. So
thank you, Courtney. I don't want to ask everyone to unmute, but I think we're all applauding you, not just for this excellent, disturbing presentation, but really excellent presentation, but also for the incredible work that you're doing. So thank you. I want to turn it over for questions, and I'm going to use my platform to ask the first one, which is, in the work that you're doing, where are you finding traction? Where are things moving in the right direction?
So I think basically our main hurdle, and this is probably something that's going to be relevant for your groups. I think our main hurdle right now is the civil servants that are currently employed by our county's Department of Environmental Facilities. They are very set in their ways, and they are not staying current on the latest science. And they really are chummy with the industry. So we are having to overcome, like they have the ear of the decision maker, and we're coming in and contradicting them. But they're very chummy with the incinerator industry. New York State leads the nation. We have the most incinerators. We used to be tied with Florida, but then the incinerator near Mar-a-Lago caught on fire and burnt down. And so now we're winning the losing of having the most incinerators in New York State. And so the lobby for incinerators, the incinerator industry is hardcore. And some of our county civil servants are part of those kind of lobby efforts, frankly. And then they're also advising our elected officials. So that has really been a hurdle. And the whack-a-mole type solution. So I really like that this group is advocating for statewide solutions, because to try and pass regulations in every municipality in New York State or any state is an uphill battle. And we need these kind of collective systemic solutions that are going to avoid us all having to play whack-a-mole. But really, it's that and also the industries have money, and so they donate money to the elected officials and to their campaigns, and they fund their pet projects and the community activities and stuff, and try to like really cultivate complacency. And so that's been a hurdle. I think what takes it from the realm of like budgetary planning and fiscal year 2028 and blah, blah, blah kind of stuff that's far away is the health impacts.
Yeah.
Because, at the end of every meeting, when they're like, oh, well, we'll work on it, let's meet again in 6 months. I'm like, how many kids are going to be newly diagnosed with asthma in the 6 months that it takes you to get back to me on this?
Yeah.
And so I just repeatedly drive that home. Like, this is a public health emergency for Peekskill,
Yeah.
even if they don't want to admit it.
Well, it's phenomenal that you have the training that you do. And I'm sure, as you said, I'm sure that opens doors and also opens minds and ears. I was also following you very closely. I think most of what was in the chat were comments, really good comments, by the way, and examples. I don't remember seeing questions per se, so I'm just going to ask if people can raise their hands, take themselves off mute. If you raise your hand, I can see who's has a question. Anyone have a question? Well, since no one is coming, just unmute yourself if you'd like to make a comment or ask a question. Okay. Did I miss questions in the chat?
Yayoi had one about I think the frit pit. It's not a landfill per se. It was like a monofill. So just ash was going there, and then they capped it. But there are other places where it's like a mix. They'll take like, municipal solid waste and ash from incinerators.
So I'm curious, Courtney, if it's part of it's right next to the park, are kids going, is there a way of keeping kids out, or do they go up and play in the?
They don't, there is a fence, so they don't play on the pit, but I think, or on the mountain of ash, but I think the leachate, which Yayoi posted a link about a group that's working on landfill leachate, they like, that is what worries me, is like what is leaking out of that. And because it's always like, who's monitoring? It's like they cap it and then walk away. We're not, especially with the nuclear stuff that we're doing, like we are not good stewards of anything, never mind being stewards of something that's going to be a danger to public health for literal eons. So yeah.
So you mentioned who is who is obstructing this progress or doing something about it? And you said a lot of the civil servants. Who is on your side, and what are they doing, and who are they budging? It's so bleak to hear all these.
I know. Yeah, so the way that things are structured for us, we need to convince Westchester County. So this incinerator is contracted with the county. The property it's on is owned by the city of Peekskill. Westchester County rents it, and Westchester County like owns the actual incinerator, but it's operated by this corporation. So we really need to convince the county. We're not dealing with like an industry, really, or we kind of are, but like the budget and the contract, the bulk of the waste that they take is with Westchester County. And so it is the county that needs to decide that this is not how we want to manage our waste. And so our board of legislators has done a lot. So last year's budget included $1 million for a compost pilot project, like a curbside recycling, curbside food scraps recycling pilot, to say like, what will it take for us to do curbside food scraps recycling countywide? Awesome. That is the kind of thing we need to be doing. So we're ready to do it and get that 1/3 out of our municipal solid waste. We fought really hard to get, we were asking for a certified zero waste consultant to be hired by the county to like deep dive on everything and say, okay, here's where you are, here's where you need to get, here's how you do it. They budgeted $90,000, but they called it a waste reduction study, and they chose a consulting firm that is really friendly with the city of Peekskill. City of Peekskill just really likes the money from the incinerator and won't do anything. The surveys and things that they put out were garbage. They were like the most like, oh, the city or the county has a household hazardous materials recovery facility in Valhalla. Why don't you recycle your batteries? And it's like, well, I'm not getting in the car and driving 40 minutes for 2 AA batteries. Like, come on. These are common sense things that are known, that the solutions are known. And so they really kind of wasted our money, and we put up a big stink, and they put another 20,000 in and revised it and whatever. And now we're like 2 years in, no results. And so really I think what we have moved so far is that waste is a conversation all the time now. It used to be a lot of people in Westchester had no idea where their garbage was going. A lot of people know now, and our legislators and electeds, they all know. The county government, they know. And I think that once that light is shown and they can't avoid it, or, like we've had to undo all the greenwashing. And I think we have successfully done that. And it's like, there's like a crack in the dike.
Well, that's huge. You've got the waste conversation, you've got the health conversation. Stefan or Stephen has a question. So go ahead.
Yeah, it's Stephen.
Stephen.
Courtney, we do not have an incinerator near us, although the city of Tucson has contemplated it in its zero waste roadmap, and we've managed to stifle that so far. But all the cities in Arizona still have a hazardous waste program, and I assume it's being exported to an incinerator because they're contracted with somebody called Hazmat Company, and I assume it's going to an incinerator. So is this a normal thing? I saw you had over 20% exported into your facility. Is this normal all across the U.S.? And if so, how did you get that conversation to the place where you could talk about it? Because right now there's a lot of planning going on here about zero waste initiatives, but there's no data on incineration that we've been able to get.
What kind of data on incineration are you looking for? Like costs or
something that gets that spotlight that says, here is what would happen if you did this. If you built an incinerator.
Sure. So there's an organization called GAIA, GAIA, Global Alliance for Incinerator Alternatives. And they have a ton of useful information and like kind of pre-made digestible flyers and presentations. They have coordinators and activists that can like come into your community and help you, can present to the experts, things like that. I think one of the things that I do is talk about the cost. And, you know, incineration, building a new incinerator is insanely expensive. And also a lot of what you're burning is then gone. So like you can't recycle it after it's gone. Like the food scraps you can turn into compost, and the compost can get used or sold or whatever. The paper, recycle it, can be reused and bought. The metal, they do recover metals from the incinerator. It's just they do it from like the ash pit that's left over. They collect after burning. So, you know, I think it helps to get your decision makers to be looking at it as wasteful, as losing community resources, and like get like by burning them as opposed to harvesting them and keeping them. I also think, you know, when you look at incinerators, they have a set lifespan. And so if your community is making a master plan, you know, what's the window of time? How old's your last master plan?
It's fairly recent. It was about 6 years ago, and this is then derivative. The new one is derivative of that one.
Okay. And because in Peekskill, ours is from the 60s. And they have not made a new one. So I think it's like if they you know, if they're going to be making a plan looking into the future, how far in the future are they looking? Because if the incinerator is only going to last them 20 years, do they want to invest, you know, however, $100 million to build an incinerator that's going to last 20 years and they're going to be paying maintenance and everything else all throughout? Or do you want to build a compost facility and a recycling center, or, you know, those kinds of things?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
The
Our conversation is still going on, and we have pointed out the costs are probably prohibitive, and I think that's the only thing that's holding it up so far because they are being lobbied hard by the waste industry.
Yeah, for sure. The Institute for, what is it called? Yayoi, the Institute for Local Self-Reliance, I think also has a lot of resources on like on circular economies and things like that. So like we also had Neil Seldman from that organization do like a quick kind of back of the envelope analysis for us on job creation. And closing the incinerator and moving to zero waste would create like 1,000 jobs for Westchester County. The incinerator currently only employs a handful, like maybe 30, depending on where you look. Like they say it's like, oh, 65 employees, but when you like look on other sites that are not theirs, it's more like 6. So who knows?
Thank you so much. If there are no other questions, can I just say thank you again from all of us for a very eye-opening and excellent presentation that's, I think, gotten us thinking. Oh, someone has one other question. Are any I'm not saying it right.
Pyrolysis biochar facilities planned for Tucson or for Peekskill?
This is Richard who's asking. Richard,
For Peekskill, no, thank God.
Okay.
I would see you'd be seeing me on the news chained to the excavator if that was the plan. And so for those who don't, I mean, I think people know pyrolysis is just like the fancy chemical recycling baloney that they sell, but biochar is, you know, burning organics and then claiming it's now something called biochar that can be used as like a soil amendment fertilizer thing, but it's chocked full of PFAS. And so farmers that have used it now have no farms because their farms are massively contaminated with the forever chemicals, the family of PFAS. So bad news.
For those that are interested, I put a link to an article about a paralysis facility that we just chased out of town in Sonoma County.
Mm,
So there's
congratulations.
put a link to an article about it up there.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you again, Courtney. I want to invite you to stay if you would like for
Sure
another
thing.
10 minutes. If you have to go, we totally understand, but thank you again from all of us. Yayoi, if I can, I'd like to ask, because we're a smaller group now, if we don't break, you feel strongly about breaking? We could only do it for about 5 minutes.
Yeah, I know. It depends on the comfort levels of people. It's well, we can just chat like this as well. But
I just think by the time we break and then come back,
exactly, we won't have time to wrap. Yes, okay, let's just go like this. So we usually break up, but let's just chat like this because if we break up, yeah, you're right.
next meeting, we'll have more time for breakouts, but can I ask if there's anyone that remains in the group that is thinking of starting a Reduces group and has not yet and would like to discuss their challenges or get support? Is there anyone who fits that category? Okay, let me ask a different question. Is there anything that is news that you're doing that you're excited about? I learned something so interesting a couple months ago in the small group. Are there initiatives you're taking that you'd like to share with the rest of the group?
Well,
Okay.
I talked about this.
Annie, go ahead.
Sorry. A few months ago when I was at the meeting that the city is allowing us to put ads on the back of the city buses for our BYO campaign. And so we're paying for we've got our Zero Waste Sonoma is paying for the cost of the printing of the ads, and the city is allowing us to put whenever there's time available. So we've got five different messages that we're getting out there about why to do BYO on each of the.
That's
Can you
amazing.
share that with us? That's amazing. I mean,
Yes,
can you share the
that's like
message?
a newsletter item for us. If you could just write like 3 sentences, 1 paragraph with a
definitely.
photo, nice, good set resolution photos. Because sometimes people send us like, bad. I need a
We
good
just got them printed, so we'll get something for you, and we'll get it out there so you can see.
Oh, that's amazing. So
What a
how do you
fantastic
fund that?
idea.
Like
Yeah.
a bus ad is like, I looked up once a city bus, like, it costs like $400, like depending on the side. If it's like on the front, it's
on the back. It's on the back.
How much
so
does it cost?
it's not like a really, really big one on the side. It's on the back.
Oh, how do you fund it? And if you don't mind asking, and how much does it cost, and for how long?
It's whenever they've got an opening, we can put them on there. So, so we're just going to start now here in October, and our Joint Powers Authority, the Zero Waste Sonoma, is giving us a grant for the printing of those, so it's not costing us anything.
Amazing. That is amazing. Wow.
Great support from the community.
Yeah. Great. Anyone else?
So,
yeah, Jill.
Yeah, I wanted to say a few things about some positive. Courtney, I'm just so my heart is still beating from their presentation. But so it's important to think about the positive things we could do. In Columbia County, the Crandall Theater, we have one of the second oldest, I think, theater in New York State. And they just did a major renovation. And we got them as one of our cultural BYO partners. And they promised when they did the renovation to put in a water fill station instead of, so that people don't have to buy the bottles of water when they come to the movies. So that's one thing that they could do. We have another cultural organization called PS21, Performing Space for the 21st Century. And they were serving wine during the intermission in plastic cups. They have switched, they also are partners of the BYO partners. and they have switched over to glass wine glasses. So there are little things. They sound like little things, but they really begin to add up, and it kind of gets into the consciousness of the people in the community that we are doing something. We can do something. I'm a member of the Ghent Climate Smart Communities Task Force, and we just had a Ghent Community Day, and we said, well, why don't we bring a water, one of these water urns and advertise it as a low waste event. So people brought their water bottles. We had water bottles they could buy, metal water bottles, and they filled their water. And we also we took a lesson from Zero Waste Capital District in Albany, and they have at all their big events. They have food scrap recovery cans. So they bring the food scraps to their compost centers, and we have a biodigester which breaks it down mechanically, but we were able to keep the food scraps out of the landfill and bring it to the biodigester. So people, if you give them things to do that are doable, people will get on board. And we need a lot more, but it's a start.
Those are
Yeah,
great
absolutely.
examples.
Yeah,
Wow.
I think food waste is like such a big portion of the waste pie. So I hope like people who haven't started, probably everybody in this room do compost, but unless
Does
you
it,
don't have access. But like, I
is
hope
any,
it will be
is
the
anyone
norm.
from a city that we just started these smart bins in DC, compost smart bins? Is anyone else seeing them in their city? They're fantastic.
We have a form of
Yeah.
it in Tucson. It came out of a university thing called Compost Cats, where
Uh-huh.
students started a compost organization. They sold that idea to the city. The city now has 5 different sites with these bins for food for businesses, and they started a residential bucket program.
Great.
That's fantastic. I mean, I was part of a pilot in DC. I mean, I got lucky to be one of the 9,000 residences that was part of a pilot that was started a couple of years ago on residential compost pickup, which is fantastic, but the city didn't have the budget to expand the program. So I'm still in this program,
Yeah.
but these smart bins are amazing because they're 24/7, you can go to the bin nearest you, which there are quite a few around the city. There's one that's not more than about a 7-minute drive from me, and you can drop off your compost any time of day. I think it's much more democratic, much more accessible than this kind of exclusive, my residents, won the lottery and I'm part of, I mean, I'm happy about it, but I think these compost bins are the future. I mean, if we want
Yeah.
compost to really be accessible to people.
Yeah. So like if you go into the weeds of things about composting, it's important to keep in mind also that municipal composts are the most contaminated and often doesn't get treated right. In New York City, there was a scandal a year or two ago when people realized that their compost are actually sent to mixed with sewage sludge. Yeah, and then sent to like I can't remember the details, but either sent to land applications or incineration. I think it was incineration. Do you remember, Courtney, about that? What happened to the compost, New York City compost? Like there was
No.
something that happened, something like that. It was mixed with sewage sludge. That much I remember, and there was an outrage. And
Yeah, I mean, in Peekskill, we have drop off. We don't have curbside, and the facility that takes the compost is right nearby. And so we've been able to go and visit it and see it, and it's not being mixed with anything. And talking with that guy, probably because it's like true believers that are going to go take their compost to drop it off. It's very little contamination. But he did go over like how they remove stuff, and then like he sends his off for testing to like make sure it's not contaminated with any stuff before he gives it away or sells it.
yeah, I
I mean,
think
I think honestly, it's like we need to get away from like the mass production idea and
Mhm.
like let each community have their
Decide,
compost
yeah.
facility.
I think that's what Brenda Platt from local self-reliance,
Yeah.
Institute for Local Self-Reliance talk says about composting. You have to keep the compost local
Yes.
and more self-sustaining instead of like relying on the big waste giants to take away your compost and export it, and you don't know what happened to the compost. So I think local control of your compost, and if you can, home composting is great. You know what goes into your compost, and if not, I think we have to be really watchful about what's going into a municipal compost, plastic debris. I visited Cornell's composting site once, like a few years ago, and there was loads of plastics,
Oof.
like cups and utensils, and then they also put so much bioplastics in it. They have this like a kettle, like a dairy operation, and they put this like a huge, like the bedding for the animals in the plastic so-called bioplastic, huge, enormous plastic. And then what they do is like they just lift it up with the haze or whatever you call it, and then bring it to the compost site with that biodegradable plastic, assuming that so-called biodegradable plastic is going to be no issue. But we've seen studies after studies showing that bioplastics contains plastic, contains PFAS, contains all kinds of toxic, substances. So we really need to be watchful about compost and, keeping compost local and, try not to rely on, move away
Yeah.
from the big waste is another important thing.
I know Brenda, and the last time I saw her, we were both touring a compost site together, actually. She's
Nice.
fantastic. Stephen, do you have a quick question? I know I said we'd finish by 8:30, but if you, please go ahead with your question. You're
That's
on
more of
mute.
a comment than a question, and it ties into Yayoi's comments. So there is an outfit in San Francisco, and I think they have also in LA called Recology.
Mm-hmm.
They take waste from restaurants, and they do sort out all other things, and they have managed to make a very efficient high turnover compost out of just those scraps, which then go back to regenerative farmers. And then they complete the circle that way because the produce comes back, and both the produce and the compost are tested.
That sounds like a good model. Okay, well, Yayoi, do you have any closing? Thank you, Stephen. Do you have any closing comments, Yayoi, before we pull the plug?
Sure. So thank you so much for staying until the very end. To everybody here, nice to meet you for those who are new. And when we do as BYO, it's a really feel-good community initiatives, but we always want to keep in mind the full life cycle of plastic, including the end of life at incinerators and landfills and all kinds of, outdoors, just languishing. It all becomes microplastics and impacting our health. So let's just keep in mind, and just like round of applause for Courtney. I know she's gonna be great, and so thank you so very much. And it was such a great presentation. I really appreciate it. And come back again, like in December for our bi-monthly meetings. We put a lot of grassroots passions and work in this. So join us and support our BYO efforts. And people to say that BYO is not the structural issue, but I really resent that, because I do think it's a structure where so many US states prohibit us from BYO. That is unseen in other parts of the world where governments are actually promoting BYO. It is a structural issue, and BYO should be a companion with a deposit return system. that is going to be rolled out, which, by the way, I strongly believe should be a public agency effort and not to be, controlled by the private corporations. There are some nefarious interests out there. So with that, thank you very much, and I see you in a couple of months.
Thank you, and we'll
Thank
be
you,
rooting for you,
Yayoi.
Courtney.
Thanks,
Thank you
Yayoi.
so much, Amy.